There has been a big political development today. Keir Starmer has suspended four Labour MPs over alleged breaches of party discipline, essentially the fact that they were deemed to be the central figures in the welfare rebellion. I'm going to read out the BBC report, but just off the top, I want to say that I think this will backfire on Starmer. It's not a position of strength. I think it's a position of weakness. I accept that party leaders have to have some authority, and you can't be a leader if you don't sometimes stamp down that authority. But on this issue, that so many people felt strongly about, on an issue of conscience, I think it just looks draconian. We're not talking about something that was a long held Labour Party policy. This is something that Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer and Liz Kendall have done. Because they think it will help the economy, but it's been deeply unpopular. It's going to affect some of the most vulnerable people in the country. And whatever way they gloss it over, it does mean cuts to disabled claimants. Whilst at the same time, I read earlier that it's also going to cut some of the programs that will help them actually into work, ironically. So Liz Kendall is putting disabled claimants in a very difficult position. Funding being cut for programs that are designed to help disabled claimants into work, and they're also getting funding, benefits cut. So this is something that I think has upset a lot of people, but specifically, I don't think that anybody voted for the Labour Party to see cuts to disabled claimants. I don't think that's why anyone voted for Labour. Maybe some did. Maybe there were people out there who said the Tories have made a mass mess of welfare, and they're of the school of thought that it's just free money and all the other misconceptions they have, which it isn't. But suspending the whip is quite a draconian move. You could disagree with Rebels. Robert Peston made a good point in the analysis of this. He said it's ironic that Liz Kendall herself admitted in a parliamentary committee that it was that rebellion that helped steer the government in the right direction. And yet now they're punishing the so-called rebels. I don't even think they are particularly rebels. They're standing up for Labour principles. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to read out the BBC report for more details. This report is by Joshua Nevitt. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has suspended four MPs from Labour over repeated breaches of party discipline. Neil Duncan Jordan, Brian Leishman, Chris Hinchliffe and Rachel Maskell have had the party whip removed, meaning the MPs will sit as independents in the House of Commons. Three other Labour MPs, Rosina Allen Khan, Bel Ribeiro Adi and Mohammed Yassin, have been stripped of their trade envoy roles. It comes after all four of the suspended MPs and the former trade envoys voted against the government's welfare reform bill earlier this month. In all, 47 Labour MPs rebelled against the government's proposed cuts to welfare and forced ministers to water down their plans. The rebellion undermined Sir Keir's authority, which was weakened after a series of policy reversals such as restoring the winter fuel allowance to millions of pensioners. The MP for York Central, Maskell, was a key figure in organising the rebellion against the welfare bill and said this was behind her suspension. In a debate in the Commons, Maskell called the bill an omnibus shambles and described the benefits changes as Dickensian cuts belonging to a different era and a different party. Maskell told the BBC she had been elected to Parliament to speak up for her constituents. I don't see myself as a rebel, she said, but I'm not afraid to speak up about whatever is my constituents' interests. In a message to the Prime Minister, she insisted she was loyal and suggested she was open to further negotiations, saying, "I'm here to build a bridge with you, and adding, I want to support the Labour government and for it to be successful." Duncan Jordan, Leishman and Hinchliffe were all elected as Labour MPs for the first time last year. Duncan Jordan, the MP for Poole, organised a letter warning the government's welfare changes were impossible to support without a change of direction. In a statement, Duncan Jordan said, "Since being elected, I have consistently spoken up for my constituents on a range of issues, including most recently on cuts to disability benefits. I understand this could come at cost, but I couldn't support making disabled people poorer. Although I've been suspended from the Parliamentary Labour Party today, I've been part of the labour and trade union movement for 40 years and remain as committed as ever to its values. My constituents, it's business as usual. I remain your hard-working local MP. I will continue to take up your concerns and speak for Pull. Leishman, the MP for Alloa and Grangemouth, has also been an outspoken critic of the government's shake-up of the benefit system. He said, I'm a proud Labour member and I remain committed to the party. I wish to remain a Labour MP and deliver the positive change many voters are craving. I have voted against the government on issues because I want to effectively represent and be the voice for communities across Alloa and Grangemouth. I firmly believe that it is not my duty as an MP to make poor people poorer, especially those that have suffered because of austerity and its dire consequences. It's the honour of my life to be the MP for Alloa and Grangemouth, and my priority remains representing and fighting for its constituents, whether they vote for me or not. Hinchcliffe said, and it doesn't mention it, he's the MP for North East Hertfordshire. I remain proud to have been elected as a Labour MP and I hope in time to return to the Labour benches. In the meantime, I will continue to fight every day for the needs of my constituents and nothing will change in how I engage and represent those I was elected to serve. He's 31, he's one of the youngest MPs in the House. The four suspended MPs had also rebelled against the government in votes on elements of different legislation, including the Planning and Infrastructure Bill and the Public Authorities Bill. But the welfare reforms have been the biggest source of discontent among Labour backbenchers. Dozens of Labour MPs expressed concerns about the government plans to cut disability and sickness-related benefits in an effort to save $5 billion a year by 2030. Well, they need to consider a wealth tax. More than 120 Labour MPs threatened to block the bill, putting the government at risk of defeat. Ministers offered significant concessions to placate rebel MPs, and the diluted bill was ultimately thrown through the Commons. But dozens of Labour MPs still oppose the bill, marking a major revolt for a party that won a huge majority last year. Sir Keir did attempt to instil party discipline soon after the election by suspending Labour MPs who voted against the government on a proposal to scrap the two-child benefit cap. One of the rebel MPs was Sarah Sultana, who recently quit Labour and said she would form a new party with the former Labour leader, now independent MP Jeremy Corbyn. In a post on X, Sultana said Labour was pushing MPs to oppose cuts that would push 800,000 disabled people into poverty. She added, insecure men, no vision, no compassion. John McDonnell, who also had the Labour whip removed after voting to lift the two-child benefit cap, Duncan Jordan had been responding to suspension in a dignified way, speaking up for his constituents and following his conscience of the crimes he committed, he posted. The suspensions of the four MPs come before Parliament breaks for its summer recess. Richard Holden, the shadow paymaster general for the Conservatives, said the suspensions were a desperate attempt to distract from yet another surge in inflation today and the secret tax plan for the Sultan, which Starmer accidentally revealed in PMQs. I want to read all of that because I think the detail is important. Now, had these MPs been suspended, for instance, I would give some examples. If they supported the actions of Just Stop Oil, or if they had praised Hamas, or if they had done something that you'd associate with the far left, you know, if they had, like Jeremy Corbyn, had a history of repeating Russian propaganda, I would support their suspensions. What they have been suspended for is something that every Labour MP should have a problem with. This is something that surely is at the core of the Labour movement, is protecting some of the most vulnerable people in the country. The way Starmer, Reeves and Kendall have behaved is a disgrace. I think they're trying to out-Tory the Tories on this issue. And in many ways they have. You know, you expect it from a Tory government, but after 14 years of them being in power, yes, it's true that a lot of people say too many people claim benefits, we need to bring it down, we need to punish fraudsters and so on. But the amount that's actually lost in benefit fraud needs to be weighed up against, for instance, administrative mistakes. It's a point I've made before. Claimants are often blamed for administrative mistakes. And then you factor in the sort of money lost in the economy from overseas tax havens and the super rich not paying their share. I mean, there is, I think, a strong moral argument for a wealth tax. You know, why is it always the most vulnerable have to shoulder the burden in this country? Um, it's so thoroughly stupid of Keir Starmer to squander the support that he had in 2024. This is going to push people into other parties like the Liberal Democrats, the Greens, and this new party that's formed by Corbyn and Sultana. Now, I wouldn't be in a rush to support that new party because I do not trust Jeremy Corbyn on foreign policy. I've never been that critical of Corbyn on some domestic policies. I mean, I'll say it. On some domestic issues, Corbyn is true Labour. He does stand up for some of the most marginalised people in society. I think he clouded his legacy by repeating Russian propaganda and by his very dubious attitude to foreign policy, which is constantly to blame the West first. So I wouldn't support the new party on those grounds, but I mean, this is something that, like I say, these MPs haven't been guilty of some sort of far left position. They have simply been decent human beings. They're standing up for vulnerable constituents. I think they deserve a lot of credit. You know, a lot of MPs have stood by the government, no doubt thinking of their own careers, or they've accepted the watered down bill. But I think Labour is, with welfare, they're in totally the wrong direction. They're focusing on punishing claimants. They're focusing on trying to be seen to be tough where they should be compassionate. I think Kendall is a complete charlatan. You know, she can say that she cares about disabled claimants. I don't think she really gives a damn. And I don't think she really understands what it's like to be in their shoes. Um, it's unforgivable, the approach that they've taken. Um, Labour just gets it wrong in so many areas. You know, they're soft on crime when they should be tough on crime. They're tough on claimants when they should be compassionate to claimants, especially disabled claimants. Um, and all of this comes, you know, they're about to approve this mega embassy by China. Now, people might think, oh, come on, if those two issues aren't linked. It demonstrates something about Starmer's style of leadership. He is soft when he shouldn't be soft, and he's hard when he shouldn't be hard. You know, so he panders to Beijing. He's going to give them what they want. So communist bullies at the other side of the world will get their way. And yet MPs who are standing up for principle and doing what all Labour MPs should do are being punished. I mean, in the court of public opinion, these MPs will get a lot of respect, so at least they can hold their heads high in that regard. Um, I've no doubt that they will get re-elected because their constituents will see that they have acted on principle. Um, but, you know, it is a risk for any politician to stand up against a government that has a large majority. And yet, like I say, Starmer's in a strange position where, in normal circumstances, you know, a year after winning a landslide, a party should be popular. The government should be relatively popular. But this government is just polarizing more and more and more people, um, on left and right. And it's sad to see. At this rate, I certainly won't be voting for Labour in the next general election unless I see some. Well, I'd find it hard to at this point. Um, so I'll wrap this up, but I give those credits huge respect. I give those MPs huge respect for what they've done. Um, yes, temporarily they are being penalised. I think the problem is Starmer's got himself into a hole because if he now reinstates him, that you know he'll look like he has no authority. And like I said, I understand prime ministers, party leaders do have to show authority sometimes. They can't simply let everyone do whatever they want, but this isn't, like I say, something whereby these MPs have sort of went radically outside the party. This is something that most Labour voters would back them on. So I think it's tone deaf by Starmer. And it looks authoritarian, it looks petty. I don't think it looks strong at all. And the MPs who support it have to justify that. They have to explain why they're happy to see their colleagues thrown under the bus for doing the right thing. Um, But like I say, I wouldn't go so far as to support the new party because I do not trust Jeremy Corbyn. Corbyn had, you know, my point with that is he had two attempts to get elected in this country. He was given the chance twice. Most party leaders, if they lose a general election once, they're out. So, you know, I wouldn't be quick to jump on into Corbyn's worldview. But on this issue, you know, I think it's where the left of the party is correct. It's a question of principle. It's a question of compassion. There cannot be any moral argument for a Labour government to be cutting support to some of the most vulnerable people in the country. And they can dress it up by saying they're going to help in other ways, but I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced, because whatever way they gloss it over, there is cuts to disabled claimants. And this isn't like a trivial thing. They need those lifelines. Um, if Kendall thinks being a disabled claimant is easy, she needs to spend a week in their shoes, but she won't do that. She's a career politician. She's, I think, massively out of touch. And this will absolutely cloud her legacy, just like it did with Ian Duncan Smith when he was working pension secretary. It would be nice for a change to see a working pension secretary who isn't obsessed by punishing the unemployed, and especially vulnerable claimants. Um, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't think this is going to collapse the government, but it is going to ironically weaken Starmer's position. He thinks this is a position of strength. You know, what Robert Besson pointed out is the Blair government had disagreements with rebels, but you know, you have the argument, you have the debate, and you can still disagree with them. But suspending the whip shows an authoritarianism. Even Blair didn't go that far. Um, you know, it's quite a radical move, and I think it will end up, you know, hitting Starmer. It's a serious mistake. Um, Probably his advisors are telling him he had to take action to show who's in charge, but it's just going to look like he is callous. I don't think it's a position of strength. What should he have done? He should have spoken with these people individually, listened to their concerns, and if not completely agree with them, at least try and find some halfway house. They're not doing it to be difficult. They're not doing it to be awkward. They're doing it because they genuinely believe it's the right thing for some of their most vulnerable constituents. And after all, it's their constituents who elected them, not Keir Starmer. So that's my take on it. Had they been rebelling on some sort of far left issue, like really out there issue, I'd have little sympathy. But this is something that millions of people care about. All they're doing is echoing public opinion. Um, I can't imagine there's even many Tories would really support huge cuts to disabled claimants. This is not a popular policy with anyone, except a small fringe group of people who think it's the right thing to do. So we'll see how this plays out. I think it's a serious mistake by the government.